Oh boy, are we ever in trouble now. Computers are thinking for themselves and they are learning by themselves. Stay tuned. All right, so going way back in time, when I was just a little boy, I would look up into the stars, into the galaxies. We lived in the country on a farm. We didn't have very many lights to block the sky, So I was able to see all the constellations, all the stars in the sky. And I would look up there in amazement. But even at such a young age, before I even had a full education, I started asking myself, what if this is all just a computer program? It always seemed to me that there was something a little bit off, almost like things aren't as real as we think them to be, as we observe them, that they are not what we observe it to be, that there's something else behind it all. And I wondered, even at such a young age, I was already taught in the Christian church. I was raised in a Christian church. And after studying the Bible, the Holy Scriptures, for a small amount of time by that point, I wondered, what if everything that we think is real is just some thoughts in the Creator's mind, that it hasn't even really come to pass yet? Because in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was void, without form, and darkness was upon it. So that right there tells you it was thought. It wasn't even existent. It was a creator's thoughts. That's what I thought as a young boy. And then God spoke. He spoke. And he said, let there be light, and there was light. And he said, and he said, and he said. So I started wondering, even at such a young age, what is speech? How could someone create something just by speaking it? And then I realized, well, when I talk, what I was taught in science class at school, your vocal cords vibrate and they travel through the air. The air is made of gaseous molecules. And the gaseous molecules surround the ear of the person listening to you. So the funny thing that I noticed at such a young age was when I would speak things, it would bring condemnation upon me from another person, or it would bring happiness. It would bring joyful responses from others, and even hatred. People would get angry with me if I said something that perturbed them greatly. It would bring hatred and angst and unhappiness against me. And I wouldn't know that if it weren't for the ability for them to speak back to me, for their vocal cords to vibrate, which excited the air molecules between me and them. And then when their joy or their happiness or their hatred or their anger reached me, my ears would hear it through vibration of eardrums in my head. Yes, by the age of 13, I had already learned all this stuff in science class in school. Now, if somebody wouldn't be able to speak to me to where I could hear it, I would be indifferent. I would not know any different. Whether they were happy, sad, joyful, or angry over anything that I said. Matter of fact, they wouldn't even know because I was unable to speak it in the first place, right? So, all in all, I started wondering, what is this realm that I live in where humans do not have emotions unless they can first see it with their eyes or hear it with their ears? Because if they don't see it with their eyes, they don't hear it with their ears, it don't matter what I think, it's not going to cause them happiness or joy or anger or hatred because, well, they can't hear it in the first place. What it took was vibrations. Vibrations from my vocal cords traveling through a gaseous realm where molecules would vibrate and vibrate one another between me and them to the point where they would vibrate the eardrums of the person hearing it. But even then, the eardrums hearing it, the eardrums just vibrated, so there has to be a translator. So the human brain converts physical movement into chemical correspondences, which in turn activate electrical correspondences, which the brain is then able to deduce, to understand, to translate it, right? So, right around the age of 13, I was granted my first computer. It's called a Commodore 64. Any of you out there able to remember the Commodore 64 computer? Well, yes and no. It depends what area you were raised in, but it was one of the very first home computers that you could purchase. And my mom and dad bought me the computer. I couldn't afford it by myself yet, so they bought it for me. We hooked it up to an old black and white TV set that we had, so there was no color graphics, because even though the Commodore 64 computer would do color graphics to stimulate the eyes with color, my mom and dad weren't wealthy by any means. They were farmers. Okay. So we had an old black and white TV set, just a small one. It was only like 8 inches wide, I think, diagonal. And we hooked up the computer to it and I played games. Well, I started wondering, okay, where did these games come from? Where did the binary codes come from that people were able to manipulate silicon and the computer chips to open and close gates in such a fashion to create visual correspondences? Well, a computer, you plug it into a wall and it uses electricity, electrons. The electrons, whoever came up with computers, figured out that you can actually arrange silicon in a way that there are millions and millions of gates that can either be on or off. Depending on the adjustment of those gates, you can get a blue pixel on a screen, a white pixel on the screen, a gray pixel on the screen, a black pixel on the screen, a red pixel on the screen. And with the keystrokes on the keyboard of the computer, you can actually move a paddle up and down to play ping pong. And somehow the computer recognizes when the little ball touches the pixels of the paddle and the movement of the paddle to change the direction of the ball. So I played around with that Commodore 64. I actually bought a book on CPM programming is what it was called, and basic programming. And I was curious, okay, so how does this programming stuff work? How can you take a bunch of atoms from a wall outlet and modify them to create visual effects and to understand what a person is inputting through keyboard and joystick movements? So I got into computer programming. After a while of trying to learn computer programming, I started wondering, wow, these computers are so dumb. I just wonder, though, what would happen if we could figure out a way to write a computer program that would allow a computer to learn and think all by itself. Well, at that point, I was like in wow. I was in amazement. I thought, you know what? I do believe that we can do that. So I continued over the years, and time came and went, and I was always wondering what would happen if we could make computers think and then embed them into a kind of a physical environment. And in my own imagination, I thought of a robot with computers that could think and learn on their own, that could become my own best friend. Because when I was a young person, I was very socially challenged. And I always wondered, is it possible that by having a self-learning computer inside of a robot, is it possible that I could come up with the best friend in the universe? But because my mathematical skills were lacking and I didn't pay attention in mathematical things when I was a child, when I was young, a young person, I was failing math courses left and right, and that was a disservice to myself. It was a disservice to myself. And instead of going out on dates and having an interest in women and doing the things that other boys in my age range were interested in, I would always go home and I would spend time at that daggum computer. And I was always working at it, trying to figure it out. I want to figure out a way, what I said to myself as a young boy, I want to find a way that we can make a computer learn by itself, to see me, to recognize me, and not to do only what I told it to do, but to learn about me, to associate with me, to do things with me as a robot, a very, very intelligent robot. Well, folks, now that it is 2023, I was going to say 2013. I was too busy thinking about when I was 13 years old. So in 2023 now, we have ChatGPT. We have multiple versions of it. GPT version 3, version 4 now. And only a small portion of those are allowed for the public to play with. But if you want to get a taste of it, play with a computer that is learning all by itself through neural networks, go and look up ChatGPT on the internet, and you'll come across a website where you can actually enter text into it, asking it to do something for you. There are people out there having it create graphics for them, create video clips for them, create artificial voice that sounds very realistic for them, doing mathematical problems, basic mathematical problems, algebra, calculus, trigonometry, geometry. Now we live in a realm where they are getting ready to use artificial intelligence to crack the genetic code. They want computers to be able to crack the genetic code, so now they can engineer each and every one of us, even while we might be 30 or 40 years old. They're saying now that they can finally find, with artificial intelligence being so much faster and so much smarter than all the human technicians in the world, they are now saying that artificial intelligence is going to be able to show them how to engineer humans to have eternal life. They want to shut off the death gene. They want to shut off the shortening of the telomeres in your genetic code. And they want to make it so now you will stop aging. And dare they say, with artificial intelligence and its ability to compute so much faster than all the scientists in the world, they are now saying artificial intelligence is on the cusp of showing them how they can stop aging and even reverse aging to an age that you want to be. Like, let's say the best year you ever lived was 28 years old. They are saying that artificial intelligence will give them some injections that you can have injected into your body that will not only stop the telomere shortening of your genetic code, but reverse it to allow the telomeres to grow longer, to bring you back to the age that you want to live in perpetuity. Yeah, I said it right. Perpetuity. Perpetual. Now, this brings something really interesting to me. Something I read in the Bible. I don't know about the other religious texts out there, if they say anything about this or not, but the Bible mentions a time in the tribulation period where people would be praying and asking for death. And the Bible says that death will flee them. They won't be able to die, even though no matter how much they want to die to avoid the things that are falling upon the face of the earth, they will not be able to die. Well, now let's reverse. Let's look up what I've talked about here. We talked about a young man, myself, when I was a young child, thinking, what would happen if we could come up with computers that can think and talk and be smarter than us and show us the way? Of course, back then I didn't realize what I was getting myself into by thinking about those things. Now we do have artificial intelligence. Now we have computers that can crunch genetic coding like there is no tomorrow. Within just days or weeks, these artificial intelligence computers can crack and break the entire genetic code and come up with solutions to stop aging, reverse aging, and eliminate death entirely. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been watching the skies over the years. It all started back in 1996. I started noticing these things in the sky. And the Bible also says to look up, and you will see signs and wonders in the sky. Signs and wonders in the sky. And then to look up, because in so doing, you know that your redemption draws nigh. Well, what have I been seeing in the sky? I've been seeing signs in the sky that tell me exactly what all of these people behind artificial intelligence, robotics, genetic engineering, what all of these people have in mind for us. And they are displaying it in the sky. And here is what we have. This was recorded in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, USA, just a couple of years ago. I've stored it on my phone, waiting to use it in future videos, and now is that future time. Look at this. This was floating above Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And a lot of people might consider this random. No, this is not random. They are deliberately making these things in the sky. This is a pentagram, folks. A pentagram. These people are not hiding it anymore. So if I could go back in time when I was a young boy, imagining the idea of artificial intelligence, weather manipulation, genetic engineering, I even thought, what would it be like if you could make plants that bugs wouldn't be able to bother anymore, so you wouldn't have to spray toxic chemicals on them? Well, even though I never ended up being a part of it, it has come to pass. I thought it, and it now has come to pass. And now, they aren't hiding it anymore. They are showing the signs and the wonders in the skies. You better start waking up. I have been awakened, and I understand what's happening now. And I hope you will too.